This incompetent will finally embarrass herself. After this deal, I'm done with her. Molina stared at the text message glowing on Troy's tablet screen, her coffee growing cold in her hands. The words felt like ice water in her veins. 6 months. 6 months she had poured her heart, soul, and every waking moment into preparing for tomorrow's pitch meeting with Gravora Group. The deal that would make or break their consulting firm, Thornland Analytics. Molina's name was Molina Wells, and for the past 8 years, she had been building something she thought was theirs. Troy and she had started this business together in Portland, Oregon, working 16-hour days from their cramped apartment, surviving on instant noodles and determination. She was the strategist, the one who crafted their proposals and presentations. He was the charmer, the face that clients loved. At least that's what she had believed. The tablet had been sitting on their kitchen counter, forgotten after Troy rushed upstairs to take what he called an urgent client call. The screen lit up when she accidentally bumped it while clearing dishes. What she saw made her stomach drop. The message was sent to someone named V with a heart emoji next to the contact name. Victoria, his assistant, the woman who had been working late with him far too often these past few months. Molina scrolled up through their conversation, her hands trembling. Months of messages, intimate jokes, plans for after the divorce, detailed discussions about how they would push her out of the business once this Gravora deal was secured. How he had been telling potential investors that she was just the background support while he was the real brains behind the operation. The cruelest part. They had been laughing about her dedication, about how hard she had been working on this presentation, staying up until 3 a.m. Perfecting every slide, rehearsing every talking point, about how she had no idea what was coming. Baby, you should see her scrambling around thinking this is her big moment, one message read. She has no clue that tomorrow is the day I finally get rid of the dead weight. Victoria had responded with laughing emojis and a message that made Molina's blood boil. Can't wait to celebrate afterward. Just you and me running the show. Molina heard Troy's footsteps on the stairs. Quickly, she placed the tablet exactly where she had found it and pretended to be loading the dishwasher. Her mind was racing, but her face remained calm. 8 years of marriage to a manipulator had taught her how to hide her emotions when she needed to. Everything okay down here? Troy asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. His touch, which once brought comfort, now felt like a snake coiling around her shoulders. Perfect, she said, leaning back against him with a smile that could have won an Oscar. Just thinking about tomorrow. I'm so excited about our presentation. He squeezed her tighter. Our presentation? That's right, sweetheart. We're going to crush it together. What a beautiful lie. The next morning arrived with deceptive normality. Molina woke at 6 a.m., as always, went through her usual routine of yoga and meditation, then headed to their home office to do final prep work. Troy was already there, looking fresh and confident in his navy suit, the one she had bought him for their anniversary last year. Big day, he said, not looking up from his laptop. Are you feeling ready? More than ready, she replied, settling at her desk. The presentation was loaded on both their computers, backup copies saved to the cloud. Every slide was perfect, every statistic verified, every argument bulletproof. She had spent the last 6 months researching Gravora Group's pain points, their competition, their growth projections. This wasn't just a pitch. It was a surgical strike designed to address every concern they might have. What Troy didn't know was that she had also spent the early morning hours making some additional preparations. A quick call to her divorce attorney, Rebecca Hayes, whom she had worked with on several client cases, a discreet email to their accountant requesting copies of all business financial records, and most importantly, setting up a recording app on her phone. I'll make us some coffee, Troy announced around 9 a.m. The meeting was scheduled for 10:30 a.m. via video conference. Gravora Group's leadership team would be joining from their headquarters in Seattle, along with their legal counsel and 3 potential investors. Molina watched him move around their kitchen with the same easy confidence he had always had. He was handsome. She would give him that, dark hair with just enough gray at the temples to look distinguished. Green eyes that could charm anyone, a smile that had convinced her to trust him with her heart and her future. But this morning, she saw him differently. The way he hummed while he worked, was he actually happy about what he was planning to do to her? He returned with 2 matching black mugs, his and hers coffee cups they had bought during their honeymoon in Italy. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Here you go, honey," he said, setting her mug down with extra care. "Drink up. You'll need the energy." The coffee looked and smelled normal. Dark roast, just how she liked it, but his smile was too sweet, too deliberate. She took a small sip and watched his face. Was that satisfaction she saw flash across his features? "Thank you," she said warmly. "You always take such good care of me." His phone buzzed. "Victoria, no doubt." "I need to use the bathroom quickly before we start," he said, already moving toward the hallway. "Can you pull up the presentation? I want everything ready to go." The moment he disappeared, Molina sprang into action. She switched their mugs with practiced efficiency, placing his in front of her computer and hers in front of his. Then she settled back into her chair, pulled up the presentation, and waited. When he returned, he sat down without glancing at the mug, took a generous sip of what he thought was his untainted coffee, and smiled at her with perfect, oblivious satisfaction. The meeting was about to begin, and so was his downfall. At exactly 10:30 a.m., their computer screen filled with faces. Harrison Webb, Gravora Group CEO, appeared in the main window, a distinguished man in his 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Beside him sat Jennifer Coleman, their chief operating officer, and Thomas Rivera, their head of business development. 3 additional windows showed the potential investors Troy had been courting for months. "Good morning, everyone," Harrison said, his voice clear through their speakers. "We're excited to hear what Thornland Analytics has prepared for us today." Troy straightened in his chair, his confident smile firmly in place. "Thank you for this opportunity, Harrison. Molina and I have been working tirelessly to create something we believe will transform your operational efficiency." Molina noticed he emphasized "Molina and I," making sure to position himself as the leader. But as he reached for his coffee mug to take another sip, she caught something else. A slight tremor in his hand. "Interesting." "Before we begin," Molina interjected smoothly, "I want to acknowledge what an honor this is. Gravora Group's reputation for innovation precedes you, and we're thrilled to potentially partner with an organization that shares our commitment to excellence." The investors nodded approvingly. This was exactly the kind of respect and professionalism they expected. Troy shot her a quick glance. Was that irritation, or was the substance he had intended for her already beginning to affect him? "Shall we dive in?" Troy asked, clicking to the first slide. "Our analysis indicates." He paused, blinking hard. "Our analysis indicates that Gravora Group faces 3 primary challenges in the current market landscape." His voice was still strong, but Molina noticed he was speaking more slowly than usual. Harrison leaned forward slightly, his attention fully focused. These were sharp business people. They would notice any sign of weakness or unprofessionalism. "The first challenge," Troy continued, "is operational redundancy across your regional offices. Our research shows." Another pause, he rubbed his temple with his free hand while reaching for his coffee with the other. "Shows that you could achieve 18% greater efficiency through streamlined processes." Molina watched the investors' faces. They were listening intently, but she could see subtle signs of concern beginning to form. Troy was stumbling slightly over words that should have been second nature to him. "The second challenge involves data integration," Molina said, seamlessly taking over. "Your current systems operate in silos, which creates delays in decision-making and reduces your competitive advantage." As she spoke, Troy took another long drink from his mug. The irony was exquisite. He was essentially poisoning himself with his own treachery, but she kept her expression neutral, professional. This had to look natural. "Troy, would you like to elaborate on the technical aspects?" she asked sweetly. He blinked several times, clearly trying to focus. "Yes, absolutely. The technical aspects are quite complex, but essentially." His words were beginning to slur almost imperceptibly. Harrison's eyebrows rose slightly. In the business world, this kind of unprofessional behavior during a critical presentation was career suicide. And Troy was about to make it much, much worse. "Troy." Jennifer Coleman's voice cut through the silence as Molina's husband stared blankly at the screen, his mouth slightly open. 20 minutes had passed since the meeting began, and what had started as subtle confusion was now becoming impossible to ignore. "I'm sorry," Troy said, shaking his head vigorously. There's something." He reached for his coffee again, taking another gulp as if it might clear his head. The substance, whatever it was working exactly as he had planned it to work on her. The data integration challenges are significant. That was when Harrison Webb's expression shifted from polite attention to genuine concern. "Mr. Wells, are you feeling all right? Perhaps we should reschedule if you're not well." Molina saw her opening. "Harrison, if I may," she said, her voice calm and professional. "Troy has been pushing himself extremely hard to prepare for this presentation. He was up until 4 a.m. last night making final adjustments. Perhaps I should take over while he collects himself." It was a masterful move. She appeared caring and professional while subtly suggesting that Troy's behavior was due to exhaustion rather than incompetence. But more importantly, she was positioning herself to salvage what he was destroying. "That would be appreciated," Thomas Rivera said from his window. "We're very interested in hearing the full proposal." Troy tried to protest. "No, I'm fine. I can." But as he attempted to stand, he swayed slightly and had to grip the edge of the desk. The investors exchanged glances that spoke volumes. "Please, darling," Molina said, standing and gently placing her hand on his shoulder. "Let me handle this. You've done so much work already." To the camera, she added, "I know every detail of this proposal as well as Troy does. We've been true partners in developing this strategy." What she didn't mention was that she had developed 90% of it herself. Troy had been the presentation face, but she had been the brains behind every analysis, every recommendation, every innovative solution they were proposing. Molina smoothly transitioned to the next slide. "As I was saying, your data integration challenges create a ripple effect throughout your entire operation. Our analysis of your Q3 reports shows that information delays cost you approximately $2.3 million in missed opportunities." Now she was in her element. This was what she had been born to do: take complex business problems and create elegant, profitable solutions. As she spoke, she watched the investors' faces transform from concern to interest to genuine excitement. Furthermore, she continued, clicking to a detailed chart she had spent weeks perfecting. "Our proposed implementation timeline would have you seeing measurable results within 90 days, with full optimization achieved in 6 months." Harrison leaned back in his chair, clearly impressed. "These metrics are quite ambitious, Mrs. Wells. How confident are you in these projections?" "Completely confident," she replied without hesitation. "We've modeled these scenarios using data from 3 comparable companies, and in each case, our methods exceeded projected outcomes." Behind her, Troy was trying desperately to regain his composure. He had managed to sit back down, but his face was pale, and he was blinking repeatedly, as if trying to clear his vision. The substance he had intended to humiliate her with was systematically destroying his credibility instead. "This is impressive work," Jennifer Coleman said. "The depth of analysis is exactly what we'd hoped to see." "Thank you," Molina said, genuinely pleased. "This project represents months of research and strategic thinking. We understand that you have multiple consulting firms competing for this contract, which is why we've gone far beyond surface-level recommendations." As she spoke, she noticed one of the investors, Margaret Torres from Callamore Partners, taking notes furiously. That was always a good sign. In her peripheral vision, she could see Troy fumbling with his coffee mug again, clearly confused about why he was feeling worse instead of better. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on her. He had planned to watch her humiliate herself, to use her supposed failure as justification for pushing her out of their business. Instead, he was witnessing her finest professional moment while experiencing the very fate he had intended for her. But this was only the beginning. The best part was yet to come. The presentation concluded to enthusiastic responses from all participants. Harrison Webb looked genuinely excited. Jennifer Coleman was asking detailed follow-up questions, and the investors were clearly impressed by what they had seen. "Mrs. Wells, this has been outstanding," Harrison said. "I have to ask, is this level of strategic thinking typical of your work?" "It is," she replied confidently. "I believe in going beyond surface-level analysis to uncover the real opportunities for growth and efficiency." "How soon could you begin implementation if we move forward?" Thomas Rivera asked. "Immediately," she said. "I've already cleared my schedule in anticipation of this project. My full attention would be dedicated to ensuring Gravora Group's success." Again, she was careful to use "I" rather than "we," not inaccurately, as she truly was the one who would be doing the work, but also strategically positioning herself as the primary resource. That was when Troy stumbled back into the room, looking even worse than when he had left. His face was ashen. He was moving unsteadily, and there was genuine confusion in his eyes. "How's everything going?" he asked, his words noticeably slurred. The contrast was striking. Here Molina was, having delivered a flawless presentation with confidence and expertise, while he could barely form coherent sentences. The optics were devastating for him. "We were just discussing implementation timelines," she said gently, as if speaking to someone who was clearly unwell. "Why don't you sit down, honey?" Harrison Webb's expression had shifted to one of concern mixed with professional assessment. In the business world, reliability and professionalism were everything. What he was witnessing would raise serious questions about Troy's capability to handle a multi-million-dollar project. Within an hour of the meeting's conclusion, Molina received an email from Harrison. "Molina, after today's presentation, I'm confident that you're exactly what Gravora Group needs. Let's schedule a call tomorrow to discuss terms. I was impressed not only by your strategic thinking but also by your professionalism under difficult circumstances." The contract was hers. The business was hers. And tomorrow, Troy would learn exactly how thoroughly his life was about to change. Molina sat in her new office overlooking downtown Portland, reviewing the latest quarterly reports from the Gravora Group project. The results exceeded even her optimistic projections. They had achieved a 22% efficiency increase and saved the company $3.8 million in the first phase alone. The divorce had been swift and decisive. Rebecca Hayes had presented such compelling evidence of Troy's attempted sabotage and planned theft that his attorney had advised him to settle quickly. Molina had retained full ownership of Thornland Analytics, along with their client list and all intellectual property she could prove she had developed. Troy had tried to contest the settlement, claiming he had been drugged without his knowledge. But when the toxicology report revealed traces of a mild sedative, something easily obtainable but requiring premeditation to use, combined with his text messages plotting to remove her from the business, his credibility had crumbled entirely. Victoria had been terminated from her position the same week Molina had forwarded her inappropriate communications with Troy to her professional licensing board. The consulting industry in Portland was smaller than most people realized, and Victoria's reputation was effectively finished. Molina had expanded the business by 40%, hired 3 brilliant analysts, and secured 2 additional major contracts based solely on the success of the Gravora project. The company that Troy had planned to steal from her was now thriving beyond either of their original dreams, and it was hers alone. Sometimes, late in the evening when she reviewed her work, she thought about that morning 6 months ago. How he had handed her that coffee with such smug satisfaction, so certain he was about to watch her destroy herself. How he had never imagined that his own arrogance would be his downfall. The beauty of perfect revenge, she had learned, wasn't in elaborate schemes or dramatic confrontations. It was in simply allowing someone's own malice to consume them while you stepped aside and claimed the life they tried to steal. Troy had taught her one final valuable lesson. Never trust someone who would poison your coffee. But more importantly, always make sure you know which cup is which. In the end, justice had been served in the most fitting way possible. He had drunk deeply from the cup of his own treachery, and she had inherited everything he had thought was his. As Molina looked toward the future, she couldn't help but smile at how perfectly the tables had turned in her favor. Hi, bestie. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.